Alright, so welcome to the TNT Racing lap guide around Sebring in the Corvette C7DP. One of the most tricky things so far with this car is just getting out of pit road. So I wanted to start there. First thing that I like to do is, as soon as I come out of the pit box, I like to turn my front arb up to 5 and my rear arb down to 1. Kind of forces the car to push a little bit more and makes it so the rear doesn't try to snap around too much. It still does it, but not as badly. But we'll see here how I come out of the pit box very gingerly, and then we make it up until the about the, I guess we call it the backstretch or whatever, the little short fast high-speed section between turns 4 and 5, I think it is. So here we go. As you can see, I'm all over the place still. It's just the nature of this car, but just trying my best to take it easy. And about this time, your tires are starting to get warmed up. It's still not good yet. If I'm not mistaken, I get pretty loose right here. Yeah, so you can hear it just sliding everywhere. But anyway, just try to take it easy. I'm definitely not driving the car as hard as I can on this outlap. Another thing you can do to help the car not be so squirrely on entry on this outlap is to keep the car in higher gear so the differential's not locking up on you so much, or not tightening up so much that it's actually causing the rear end to lock up and wanting to get around on you. So, a turn that may be a second gear turn normally, keep the car in third gear or maybe even fourth gear. With that though, remember that, that's going to require you to slow the car down with the brakes a little bit more. I know a lot of us tend to rely on the differential to slow the car down, which you shouldn't do anyway. You should always use the brakes to slow the car, and the differential is just there to help the car actually accelerate. But I know a lot of us are guilty, myself included, of using the differential to slow the car. But anyway, just keeping the car in higher gear can sometimes help you out with that. Alright, so here we are. It's about to start the track out itself, the lap guide around Sebring. Keep in mind, I'm not the best driver out there, so if you know something better than me about how to take one of these turns, feel free to share it down below so that everybody can learn a little something. But this is how I drive Sebring, for better or for worse. I'll take the opportunity to learn like anybody else if you know a better way of doing it. But anyway, so here we go. Alright, so here we are about to approach turn 1 entry. Now if you look up here on the right hand side, you see the white line, and it actually goes into the wall up there in just a second. It turns into a yellow line. That's the point I start to roll out of the throttle and get ready to actually make my turn into turn 1. So what I'm doing up here is I'm just about the time the white line ends, I'm getting off the gas and starting to ease on the brake just a little bit to slow the car, and we're starting to downshift from 6th to 5th into the 4th. And we want to try to catch the inside apex of that wall over there. And about the time we get to the apex, we can start accelerating out, or we should be able to if the car is set up right. But if you miss that apex, it's going to push you wide. If you cut that apex too soon, it's definitely going to push you wide. And it's a blind apex, so you kind of have to just get it from practice. But here we go. I'm going to leave this up so we can hopefully watch the gears. We'll watch it from the cockpit. I think you can see the gears from the cockpit. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but back here on the wall is a cone, and that's kind of like your apex cone. It's actually hanging off the fence. I don't really notice it when I'm driving. I just know it's there. But that's kind of where you want to apex at. So we'll back that up one more time. We'll go slow motion. So we're trying to apex right about there, and then we should be back on the gas about this point. And the car's going to push out, and we kind of want to just ride that rumble strip if we can. Or not necessarily ride it, but we want to use up all the track. Okay, so now we're getting ready. Let's back this up a little bit. Now we're getting ready to come into turn number 2. And you see there's this group of cones right here. There's these 3 cones. Right before that is where I started to get on my brakes. Now you can actually swing the car out here a little bit better and kind of come in parallel with this. But I just like to come in the way I come in, straight through here, and I don't really notice any difference, honestly, in my lap time. So this is just more comfortable for me instead of having to swing out wide, come back to the left, and then come back over here. I just let the car stay to the right side of the track, and it works for me. So we'll try to go slow motion. I kind of like that too. I can kind of walk through what I'm trying to do. But coming up here, I'm pretty much trying to treat this like an S curve if possible. So I'm going to take a shallow cut into the first part of turn 2 there and try to make it a straight through path as much as possible into turn 3 and try to get back to the right side of turn 3 as fast as I can. So we'll go in slow motion, I guess. Actually, we'll do a fast motion one time, and then we'll come back and look at that slow motion. All right. So let's walk through it in a slower motion here now. Keep in mind, too, this track is bumpy. I mean, you may be able to work on these shocks a little bit and get it a little bit better, which I hope we can, but this is not too bad considering the car and the track here. The car's maintaining grip, so that's what we're really worried about. All right, so coming through slow motion. Right about here, I start getting on the brakes at that 3rd cone. I'm going to try to downshift, and make sure you time your downshift. You don't want to lock up that rear end, but I want to get down to 2nd gear. And then I'm going to start my turn in, and I'm trying to clip. If you look right here, there's kind of like a point right there. I'm trying to get the left side of the car close as I can without hopefully hitting it. And then bring the car back to the right, and I'm kind of want to be able to touch that little strip on the right-hand side a little bit. Off the throttle again, and let the car roll. And there's like a little, it's kind of hard to see, but like right here, kind of like when you're driving, looks like there's a little point almost. That's kind of where you want to aim for the left side of the car. And then you should be able to get back on the gas once you get to that point. Obviously now we're rolling onto the gas. We're not getting on it hard because you can break the rear end loose of this car pretty easily. And we're coming out to that rumble strip. And hopefully you don't actually hit it like that. You just want to kind of graze the rumble strip. But, is what it is. I'm not a perfect driver, so sometimes I grab it like this then. So one more time. We're going to come in off the throttle, let the car roll into through turn 2, let it roll. Kind of when we hit the apex at turn 3 over here, we can get a little blip of the throttle. Or not a blip, more like about a 1.5 second burst of throttle there. And then back off the throttle a little bit on the brakes and let it turn into turn 4 there. So here we go. One more time looking at it. So we're going to brake it the 3rd cone, and then that's where the whole sequence starts. Now we're heading all the way down to the back stretch. All right, so here we come up to turn 5, or I think they call it the hairpin here. I'm not really good with corner names, but turn 5 up here. Coming into turn 5, you've got this little bump right here where the tarmac changes from one color to the next. If you hit that with too much speed, it really messes up and compromises your braking ability. So for me in this turn, I slow down probably sooner than you really need to for this turn necessarily. But I found that if I try to carry my braking just a little bit further, what winds up happening is I'm carrying too much speed when I hit that bump, and it actually launches the front of my car up in the air a little bit, and I lose my braking ability, and it winds up compromising my turn into turn 5 here. So I start slowing down right at these 4 cones. And with that, then I'm going to downshift into first, right before the turn in, or just as I start my turn in. And then it's going to allow me to drive out of the turn pretty good. Now, if you find that you know, the rear end might be locking up on you or something on downshifting in the first gear right there, you let the car stay in second until you actually get to the apex, and then downshift into first before you start driving up out of the corner. I do both ways sometimes. I'm like 50-50 on it. Depends on how the car feels on my entry. Sometimes I don't get my braking marker just right, and I'll leave the car in second to let the car roll a little better. And honestly, I think probably the fastest way is leaving the car in second. But once again, it just depends on how I come to this corner. Sometimes I get a better braking force than it seems like I did the previous turn. So it's about 50-50 on me whether I come in this corner in first gear or second gear, and then downshift into first to drive out. So anyway, here we go. I'll start my braking about the 4 cone here, just right before it. All right, then we're just going to try to drive straight up out of it. So we just want to drive straight up out of that. Just remember that that entry is, and that corner in general, are pretty bumpy, and the car is going to be bouncing. So make sure you roll on that throttle very gingerly until the car really settles down. Then you can really hammer on it. Stay right there, and we'll come to the left here. All right. So now we got one of those 4 cones, 3, and then 1 1. Same thing here, pretty much. I'm going to stay in 6th gear to just before these cones, or sometimes right at them. It just depends on how the car's feeling. I mean, sometimes you know when your car's braking a little bit better, your car's a little lighter on fuel, whatever, you can kind of drive in just a little bit deeper. But to be safe, you can back it up just a little bit more. But in general, right around this 4 cone is where I get on the brakes. Something to be careful of in this car specifically is, remember, you're driving on the right side of the car, and you're turning into the left-hand turn here. You've got a lot more car on this side over here. So try to, and remember, it's kind of, the ass end's wider than the front end. So try to remember that as well. It's kind of biting me in the butt right now. Sometimes I come into this corner, and that left rear tire will grab the grass a little bit, and it's getting me squirrely coming in on my braking. So just remember that. It's something that I'm going to have to practice to remember this car is a little wider. I'm used to driving the HPD here, not this car, so it's a little bit of a learning curve for me too. But anyway, so we're coming in. We're going to brake here, starting around the 4 cones, and we're going to stay in 2nd gear here. I've just found if I get down to 1st gear before this entry, it definitely upsets the car. And sometimes I'll even stay in 2nd gear. I'm kind of 50-50 right now. I'm not 100% sure if 2nd gear feels better through this corner, or getting down to 1st as I start to accelerate out feels better. I'm still trying to decide which one, but staying in 2nd gear here is definitely safe. But under any circumstances, either way, you want to stay in 2nd gear as you're actually making the turn. And that just because this turn is so bumpy that getting down into 1st gear will just cause you so much issues on the rear end. So we're going to brake at the 4 cone, downshift into 2nd, and try to roll through here, and then gingerly get back on the throttle, because this car's going to be shaking and bouncing all over the place. So you definitely want to give it time to settle down before you really get harder on the throttle. Then we can get harder on the throttle all the way around into the next set of turns, which is where I'm going to stop this. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so as you can see, I got a little squirrely there coming around that corner. What happened was my left rear got out there a little bit. And 2, I downshifted into 1st here too soon, and that also kind of upset the rear end of the car. So don't do that. It definitely, you can notice a difference if you stay in 2nd gear. Kind of feel like I'm contradicting myself right now, but I guess just trust me when I say stay in 2nd gear until you get at least to this apex here and the car slow down a little bit more, okay? Alright, so we're all good up until this point here. Alright, and now we've got these set of corners here. 3, 2, 1. Now, ideally, you want to be coming out here and trying to get there. That would be the ideal turn in, obviously. But leading up into this point, we really want to be harder on the throttle, getting around these two left-handers we just came off of, which naturally is going to put you out here. Now, you can back out of the throttle a little bit more and get a little bit wider turn in. I don't really see an advantage in that, at least not in this car. Maybe in a different car it's an advantage. But I like to stay on the throttle hard up until that point. So stay on the throttle hard. And then right before I get to this 3 cones where I start rolling out the throttle and getting on the brakes. Getting down into the second here. And this is a really, really rough entry. So this one you definitely want to stay on in second gear. I don't think every time I've tried to get in the first gear here, period, no matter what, it seems to upset the car. But so right before the cones, roll out the throttle, start getting on the brakes, get down to the second, at the first cone right there. Just after that, we want to start our turn in. And we're shooting for that apex, but we're trying to be off throttle too because this car is bouncing all over the place right now. Now, right after the apex, you can kind of feel when the rear end settles down a little bit, we can start rolling in the throttle some. But this is probably the most gingerly roll in here because the back end of this car is really upset at this point. Whole car is upset. It's bouncing and hopping everywhere. So we're going to come in, down to second, easy roll in. And I always, you heard of those zoop, zoop. I always catch those 2 rumble strip areas on the left-hand side, on the left side of the car. That's kind of like how I know I double apex that the way I need to. So coming up here, we should be in 6th gear, which obviously we are. You can see it. About where this grass starts right here, we want to bring the car down to 3rd. So that's going to get on the brakes, bring the car down to 3rd gear. And what we ideally want to do is apex in the middle of these 2 cones we're going to see up here on the right-hand side. And we're just going to kind of roll to that point. And you can start getting on the throttle a little bit when you get to that point, just a little burst of throttle, and then we want to roll back to the left. And the main thing is we want to get back to the left as much as possible. That's what's really going to set us up for that drive out of the final turn and down that long back stretch. So the most important thing is here, make sure we get back to the left like we need to. But so we're going to drive, we're going to start braking rather, right about the grass line, get down in the 3rd and just kind of let the car roll to the apex on the right hand side. We'll look at it one time in fast motion, then we'll actually let's do it in slow motion here, and then we'll do it in fast motion. So we're on the brakes, we're trying to get down into 3rd, and now we're just wanting to roll for a little bit. Now once you know you've made the turn, you can give a little bit of gas. So we get a little bit of gas now, we know we made the turn. But the big thing is we want to make sure we get back to the left here. Ride that cone, and I ride that little rumble strip over there. And then we want to break down into, break down or slow down rather, and we want to try to hit this apex right here. That cone is our apex marker. So if you could ride these curbs, for me, I found that to be the fastest way on all around, but you've got to be careful because it's very easy to drop a tire over that curb, and it'll actually kind of just hang your car there because it is a drop off on the other side of that curb. So there's a fine line between riding it and having it really screwed you up. But so we want to apex, and right about the apex here now we can start rolling into throttle, and it's going to carry us to the outside rumble strip that's over here, and start getting hard on the throttle to get down this black stretch. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at. I would definitely say this is not a perfect corner, but so that's what we're trying to do. All right, so to the right, back to the left, or let me start over. Down into 3rd, roll to the right, get a little bit of gas. Down over to the left, being the most important thing, get to the left there and letting the car roll into that final turn, and then on the gas, staying in 3rd gear pretty much the whole time. Okay, so now we're coming to the final turn. So I still pretty much hold on to the gas all the way up until this cone. That's probably the safe bet. You can hold it all the way to this second set of cones. But at the third cone right here is when I start my turn in. And it's going to be hard to see. Let's see if I can actually get over there. Let me give it a different look. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. Right here, you can see the white line and that yellow line. So I'm coming to this third cone, or pretty close to it, and I'm usually getting out of the gas around there, but I want to try to get the right side of my car right around that area. That's going to set me up for my braking and my turn in into the next set of cones, or the next turn, which is another critical turn because that's probably the bumpiest turn on the track, and you want to get a good consistent line through there so you get used to it, and it's also going to lead you to the front stretch, which is the other high-speed section on the track. All right, so we want to slow the car down into third gear, taking a wide approach, and we want to try to apex right here, right at the crest of this wall. And then once we hit that apex right there, then we can start getting back on the throttle and coming up out of the turn. It's going to give us the widest entry of the turn. You may want to experiment with this. Some people like a different line through this turn. I think this is a very driver-dependent turn. It seems like a lot of people like a different line through here. This is how I tend to go, and honestly, I probably didn't hit this quite like I like. I probably want my car a little bit more over here. Once again, this is because I haven't driven this car here much. This is only like, I think, lap 6 or so. So it's not going to be perfect, like I said, but maybe a little bit wider coming in here. But in general, I want to try to apex, catch the middle of this turn right here, or this wall, and then start driving up out of it. Once again, remembering to be somewhat gingerly on the throttle because we don't want to break the rear loose over all these bumps. The car's really upset through here too. I think anybody who's drove Sebring knows that bumps everywhere, and it makes the car fun to drive. But anyway, so coming up out of here. And that's my lap around Sebring. We'll watch it one more time from maybe the chase, and that might give a little bit better view of where the car is going to be, and we'll just watch it in real time. Just so you know, you can probably see it up here, but that was a 154.3 lap. Definitely not the fastest laps that can be turned here. I'm guessing I'm probably going to wind up being in the 53.2 to 5 range, somewhere in that area, in race trim. But it's a decent lap around here. But anyway, so here we go. We'll just watch the whole lap. If I see anything that I didn't point out before, I'll go ahead and stop the camera and point it out. All right, and that's it. That's the lap around Sebring. So hopefully this helps you guys out. I'm going to also share the setup that I used when I drove this lap. It's a fairly decent setup. Like I said, there probably could be some shock work done. It's still kind of bouncy a little bit, but in general, it seemed fairly stable and relatively easy to drive. You know, as far as this car is concerned in general. I mean, it's not an easy car to drive, but I think it will help you guys out some. So anyway, yeah, I hope this helps. If I get a much better lap during the week and I actually get time to sit down and do another one of these, I'll at least try to post a better lap for you guys to look at. But as far as my actual verbal comments, what I'm actually trying to do, I think that's pretty much spot on. It may be a little off on what I actually did in the car because, like I said, I'm just not used to driving this car here yet. But I think in general, that should give you something to work on and get you at least in the 54 range in the car. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully I can bring you something else when we come to the next road race that'll help you guys out as well. Take care.